Good morning, everyone. Vloggy Poncho here. Today is Sunday, February 3rd. I'm weighing in at 181 pounds. Today's meals are spicy brekkie and whatever the hell I have for dinner, since the dining halls are closed, I don't know. It's the last day of the month of meals. And I think that the net effect of this month of meals was that I lost about 5 to 8 pounds, depending on how accurate my daily weighings were. So my top weight was 188 pounds. My lowest weight was 180. So weighing in at 181 today, I'm somewhere around 5 to 8 pounds less than where I started. So after a month, I think that's pretty good progress. About a pound a week is supposedly a healthy weight loss pace. So I think that's pretty good. And then goal progress. Stretching. I have not yet stretched today. And I did not stretch yesterday. I missed out. I forgot to do it last night. So I'm going to stretch right after I make this video. And then what else? Atlas Shrugged. I'm on page 1. So I'm now realizing why I felt compelled to make reading a book a goal. Because I normally never find the time to read a book on my own accord. So what I need to do now is try and figure out at what time of the day, or even week, do I have the time to read a book? When do I want to set aside an hour to sit down and read some of this? So I'm trying to figure out what to do about that. And I think I might make it a before bed thing. I think that's what I did when I was a kid, and it worked pretty well then. So I'm thinking I'm going to try to, maybe try and get in bed half an hour early, and then just read for half an hour. Apparently that can help you fall asleep too. Like if you're someone who gets into bed and then has to take an hour to try and fall asleep because your mind is still worrying, you're still going from the day, apparently reading for a while before bed can help get your brain on one thing for a while and calm you and sort of help you go to sleep, especially if the book is boring. Although that's not a requirement for sure. All right, so I noticed a trend on the Sundays, the Sunday episodes. After today, 3 out of the 5 Sunday episodes have been about Pokemon. I talked about what I didn't like about Pokemon. I talked about my favorite Pokemon. I do want to make a video eventually of my favorite things about the Pokemon franchise, and which I have a lot to say there. I know that one video came off as very negative, but I am a fan of the games. But today I want to talk about a particular thing in the Pokemon world, and that is Nuzlocke runs. Now, I believe I mentioned in a previous Vloggy Poncho video that I want to do a Nuzlocke run, and today I'm making that an official announcement. So all you Vloggy Poncho folks, which we don't have a name for, I guess you're still pilots. You're all pilots. Unless I have people on this channel who aren't subscribed to Angry Poncho. Who are you people? How did you find me? But I guess we can be pilots here too. That makes sense. Or maybe not. Maybe you guys should be, because you're Vloggy Poncho and Angry Poncho, maybe you're like an elite class of pilot. Like a fighter pilot? I don't know. Give me some ideas in the comments. And then, okay, anyway, so I wanted to talk about a little bit early, sort of an early announcement for Angry Poncho is I want to do a Pokemon Nuzlocke run. And I also want to play a Generation 4 game. I've never played a Generation 4 Pokemon game. Now, I have played Blaze Black, which has some Generation 4 Pokemon that you run into in it, but I don't know explicitly which ones are Gen 4 and which ones are Gen 5, because I never played a Gen 5 game either. So, I've never played Gen 4, so I want to do a blind run. And I want this to be an LP. So I want to do a blind Nuzlocke LP. And I'm going to do Platinum version. Because I know that for any of the 3 games, like Ruby, Silver, or Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, you always want to go for the 3rd one because it's got improvements. So I assume Platinum is better than Diamond or Pearl. I'm just assuming that. But I think that's the case. So I'm going to do a blind Nuzlocke run of Platinum. And I wanted in this video to talk to you guys, and especially those of you who are familiar with Pokemon, about the rules that I want to use for this run. And I'm going to post a link in the description. That'll be to, I don't know what, a paste bin or somewhere where you can read the text of the rules that I invented. And so you can read along with me, but I'm going to read them aloud here, and I think I'm going to put them on the wall too. So let me lean back. So let's see. First, so the basic. Oh, don't you do that! Camera, you see, the other day I turned off this monitor so that I wouldn't have the glare on my glasses, and then my camera decided, look, see, it's zoomed all the way in. It's zooming as close as it can right now. That's why you can see the veins on my hand. Look at my nasty. I'm gonna have liver spots when I get old. Oh my gosh. Come on. Back here! Give me a flat surface to look at. Come on. Come on. Come on, camera. You can do it. Come here, boy. Come here, camera. Come on, focus up. Oh, you son of a bitch. What are you doing? I don't... Alright, I'm gonna do this automatically. I'm gonna manually focus. Zoom. There we go. Taking control! Whereas now if I get too close, I'll go out of focus, but whatever. Alright, so here's the rules that I wanted to talk about for a Nuzlocke run. And the first couple are standard. So just to give you a quick explanation, if you don't know what a Nuzlocke run is, it's got 3 basic rules, which I'll just say aloud. The hardest and biggest one is that when a Pokemon faints, when it runs out of health and faints, it's not a temporary thing, it's considered dead. It's gone. And so there's a couple ways to handle that. Most people just release the Pokemon at that point. So when you catch a Pokemon, you have to never let it faint. Because if it faints, it's gone forever. And that's the first and the biggest rule. And then the second rule is the rule of first contact. That's what I'm calling it, at least. It says that you can only catch 1 new Pokemon in each new area, like a new route or a new city. And that Pokemon is the first encounter in that area. So if I walk out into Route 102 and I run into a Zigzagoon, I either get to catch a Zigzagoon or I get no Pokemon on that route, ever. So it basically forces you to use Pokemon you wouldn't normally use, and it randomizes a little bit which Pokemon you end up with. So you may not get your favorite Pokemon. And the starters are randomized too, but that's later. So you have permanent fainting, you have the first contact rule, and then the third one is nicknames, pretty much. That's lower down the list on mine, but it's strongly encouraged that you nickname all of your Pokemon so that you can become that, so that they're your bros, so that you bond with them. And if you still are a little unclear as to how Nuzlocke works, there's a link in the description to the creator, his website. He made a comic series where he chronicled his adventures in his first few Nuzlocke trials. Yeah, I think he's in the middle of his 3rd one right now, but you can go onto his page, and I strongly encourage that you do, because they're actually engaging and interesting comics, especially if you already know what Pokemon is. I assume that most people watching have at least heard of it before. I don't know. I wish I had a stronger understanding of who was watching and how much you know about Pokemon or other games. I don't know. I'm assuming you got here through Angry Poncho, so you've probably seen a couple Pokemon LPs. Alright, so now I'm going to go into more detail. So at this point, the announcement's over, and now I just want to ask some opinions from you guys. Because I made a very strict and complicated set of rules. They're not that complicated once you learn them. But I want to know if this makes sense, and I especially want input from those of you who may have done a Nuzlocke run before. So here's the first rule. Permanent fainting. So I'll read you what I said here. Fainting is permanent. If a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and must be permanently boxed to join the ranks of the honored dead. So there's a debate here. Is it better to permanently put them away in the box and never use them again, put them in a special box for dead Pokemon, call it Heaven, call it Valhalla, whatever, or is it better to just release them? I need an opinion on that. And anybody can chime in on these things. I'm just curious as to what people think would be more appropriate. So the whole idea is that once they're dead, they're gone. And one way or the other, you can't ever use them again. And then continuing that same rule, if all Pokemon in the party faint. So if your entire party gets killed, it's a game over. And that's the end of the Nuzlocke challenge. So that's pretty simple, I think, the first rule. Is it permaboxing or is it releasing? Which is better? Rule number 2, first contact. So this one's this is probably the most complicated rule, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. So it says that you can only catch your first encounter in a new area. And so the encounters which are scripted, like the very first battle in the game, like I don't know what Platinum is like, but in Emerald, your first battle is a scripted battle against a Zigzagoon or a Poochyena or whatever it is. And that doesn't count as your first encounter since you're forced into it. And then other things like special events and trainers don't count as your first encounter. So if you go into a new route and you have to battle your rival, seeing them having Pokemon does not count as your encounter for that route. So you still get a chance to catch something. And then we don't count encounters prior to your ability to catch Pokemon. So if you don't have the ability to get Pokeballs yet, like it's still really early in the game, then you don't miss out on those routes until after you have the opportunity to get Pokeballs. And then Pokemon given to the trainer as gifts or trades, those count as your first encounter. So if there's going to be a gift Pokemon on that route, you can't run into anything else until you get the gift. And then I say fossils and eggs are considered encountered in the location that they're hatched or revived. And then if you hatch it accidentally somewhere where you've already caught a Pokemon, you have to release it since you can't have two from that area. And then when in doubt, a Pokemon is considered obtained in the location listed on its Pokemon card, which is the little info screen. And then you can tell what area you're in by looking at the pause screen or looking at the sign in the corner of the screen when you first enter. Okay, so that's pretty much just getting the straightening out. And then there's a clause for this one called the duplicates clause, which says that only encounters with species that are not previously owned or counted. So basically it means you cannot catch a Pokemon that you've already had. And I expand it to be evolved or pre-evolved forms or first contact Pokemon that you defeated previously. So basically, if I catch a Sandslash and then it dies, and I go on to another route and my first encounter is a Sandshrew, I can't catch the Sandshrew because that would be essentially replacing my Sandslash, which is not allowed. Similarly, if I have a Sandshrew and I run into a Sandslash, I can't catch the Sandslash either. So basically, having a Pokemon means you can't catch any other Pokemon in that evolutionary line. Let's see. So then, so if I go into a cave and my first contact is a Zubat and I don't catch it, you only get one chance at each Pokemon. That's the whole idea here. So if I go into a cave and my first encounter is a Zubat, this is my only chance in the whole game to catch a Zubat. So if I catch it or kill it, either way, the next time I go into another cave and I get an encounter with a Zubat, I cannot even attempt to catch it. It's not allowed. And then I say for the duplicates clause, let's say if you keep running around and you keep getting Pokemon that you've already seen, you get 3 tries. So if you get duplicates 3 times, no Pokemon for that route. So you can see how this makes it difficult. You really basically get 1 shot at each species, and in fact, 1 shot at each evolutionary line. So if you miss it, where that Pokemon dies, you can never replace that Pokemon. And that's going to make it even more of a bro tier kind of thing. So you're really getting into your Pokemon and not just treating them as battle instruments, but you actually care about whether or not they faint. Rule number 3, blindness. Play with no knowledge of the game's plot. Which I'm basically saying I'm playing the game blind. That's what that means. And I'm saying that Pokedex lookups are allowed only for discovered Pokemon. So if I catch or if I see an enemy trainer with a Pokemon, so it appears in my Pokedex as discovered or seen or whatever it's called, then I can look it up on Bulbapedia or whatever and find out what kind of Pokemon it is. And then the comments section may or may not provide help, but I'm not going to be probably not going to be asking for a whole lot of stuff from the comments because that's part of the blindness part. This will be a very kind of a lenient rule because if a commenter says, hey, you know, there's a rival battle on the next route, watch out, it's something I definitely want to know. And it's sort of a warning, but not a complete filling in of like, oh, they have this Pokemon and this Pokemon and this Pokemon and their levels this, and this, and they have these moves. Like, no. So just sort of those sort of general warnings, like, oh, the next gym is really tough, better level up, or hey, there's a rival battle coming, or hey, you missed the HM that you had to talk to an NPC to get. That kind of stuff. Like, oh, you didn't talk to the cut guy. Okay, that's something that a commenter could say. That's no problem. And I'm not really going to be putting that much restrictions on it, but I'm just not going to be asking for a whole lot. Rule number 4, starter selection. So the starter is chosen randomly, and this is probably the biggest thing that people would be surprised about. Like, random starter? You don't get to pick your starter? Yeah. So the last non-zero digit of your trainer ID determines your starter. So if your ID ends in a 1, 2, 3, you get the grass type. 4, 5, 6, you get the fire type. 7, 8, 9, you get the water type. So you get a random starter, basically. And that's basically all there is to it. And it's just like any other Pokemon. You nickname it, just like all that. Rule number 5, set battle style. And this is just to make it harder. Basically, the battle style will always be selected as set. So if you don't know, there's the 2 options are set and shift. And if you're on shift, whenever your opponent in a trainer battle sends out a new Pokemon, or before they send it out, you get the opportunity to switch Pokemon. So it'll say, you know, last Cecilia is about to use a Zigzagoon. Will you switch? And it's like, okay, and that's shift. So I'm going to be playing on set, where you don't get that option. They just send it out, and then if you want to switch, you have to use a turn. Because I think that's how Pokemon's meant to be played. I think the shift is to make it easier for kids. Rule 6, no legendary Pokemon. So I'm saying no legendary Pokemon may be used at any time, except if the plot requires it. You can use them only when they're required to be used, and then they have to be immediately released afterward. Just because legendary Pokemon are so overpowered. I mean, come on. That takes away from the whole challenge of the run. Rule number 7, trading. In general, no trading with other versions is allowed, but there is an exception. Pokemon which evolve via trading, or trading holding an item or whatever, may be traded and immediately traded back solely for the purpose of evolution. And I'm not sure if I can even do that with my emulators, but hopefully they can figure that out. So that's just so you don't get stuck with a Pokemon that can't evolve, which I think you should be able to evolve your Pokemon. I mean, come on, that's part of the game. Now that would be a whole other level of challenge if you said no evolutions allowed or whatever. And then Rule 8, the HM clause. So this is just to make sure that you can finish the game. So Pokemon that may be caught as HM slaves in certain circumstances. And so basically the circumstance is if you absolutely need like Rock Smash in order to go to the next city. You need Rock Smash to continue in the game. But none of your Pokemon can learn Rock Smash. You're allowed to catch a Pokemon that knows it, or that can learn it. And then you can catch whatever you want to use that HM, but you cannot use that HM slave in a battle. It's only for the use of that HM. And if I were to do this, I would take the HM slave out, use it to smash the rocks, and move through, and then immediately put it away or to release it, because I wouldn't want to accidentally use it in a battle and break the rules. And then I said the HM slave must be released as soon as another captured Pokemon is able to learn the required HM move, or the HM is no longer needed. Like if you only need to use Strength in this one cave in order to get through the cave, then if you had to use Strength to get through Victory Road, to get to the Elite Four or whatever, you could catch a Pokemon to use Strength, but then as soon as you're through to Victory Road and you can fly there, you don't need Strength anymore to get there, so you have to release the HM slave. Rule number 9, and rule number 10. There's no limit on the number of items you can buy and use in battle, and there's no limit on the Pokemon centers. Some Nuzlockers will run through and say one use per Pokemon center, 5 potions per mart or whatever, just to make it even harder. But I'm not interested in that. I think that would make it a little bit too hard. And then Rule 11, daycare usage. No daycare usage is allowed. No putting Pokemon in the daycare. The whole idea is that you're supposed to bond with them. They're supposed to become your bros, and putting them in the daycare is not broly. Not good. Rule 12, breaking the rules. It says any intentional violation of these rules is considered a game over. So if you purposefully break the rules, you lose. Makes sense, right? And then there's a little bit of a harsh rule that says if a rule is broken unintentionally, then the Pokemon leading the party at the time the rule was broken must be released as punishment before the challenge can continue. So let's say I catch a Zigzagoon on Route 1, and then I catch another Pokemon on Route 1. Accidentally. Like, whoops, I didn't realize it was the same route, or it was a route that has 2 parts. Like, there's a cave in the middle of the route, and I didn't realize it wasn't a new route. Accidentally catch a second Pokemon. As soon as a commenter calls me on it, whoever Pokemon was leading the party at the time the rule was broken gets kicked. It has to be released. Not permabox, released. So this isn't like they're joining the Honored Dead. This is like punishment, they're gone. And then I said, if the rule breaking resulted in capturing a Pokemon that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten, it must be released as well. That's about it, really. That's all the rules I came up with. So what I want from you guys is, does that sound like an interesting rule set, and does it sound fair? And are there any things I've forgotten to account for? Because I've never done a Nuzlocke before. And this is going to be a blind playthrough of the game itself. So I have no idea what to expect, and I'm not asking for plot spoilers here. I'm just asking if there's a problem with the rules that you note, or if it seems like one of the rules doesn't make sense, or isn't fair, or just dumb, then let me know, and I'll think about changing it so we can get the best videos out of this as possible. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing, is hopefully getting a blind Nuzlocke challenge going pretty soon. I think as soon as Black and White 2 finishes, we'll be doing the blind Nuzlocke of Platinum. So I'll be looking forward to that. Thanks for your comments, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.